Hey there, how's it going everybody? In this video, we'll be finishing up our user profile page and making it so that users can update their information from this page and also upload a new profile picture. We're also going to set this up so that our images are automatically resized when we upload them so that we don't have extremely large images on our file system when we're only displaying these small little, 200 pixel images here on the profile. So let's go ahead and get started. So in order to update our user and profile, we're going to need to create some forms. And we've created forms in a previous video when we created the user register form for our register page. So let's open up that user app forms.py file that we created in that video. And we're going to create a couple of additional forms to update our user and profile. So within Sublime Text, within our users app, we're going to open up that forms.py file. And within here, we're going to create some additional forms. So we're going to create something called a model form. And a model form allows us to create a form that will work with a specific database model. And in this case, we want a form that will update our user model. So let's create this. So on a new line down here, I'm going to create a new class, and I'm going to call this user update form. And I'm going to inherit from forms.model form. And within this class, this is going to be very similar to our user register form, except we're not going to use the password and password to here. So we only want to update the username and the email. So I'm just going to copy this user register form here and paste this in and get rid of the password 1 and password 2. Now, in a future video, we will have a reset password form where they can request a reset email for the passwords, but they're not going to be able to update their passwords on this, just their username and email for now. So by specifying these values here in the fields, it lets our form know that we want to work with the username and the email within this user update form. But you can see that we don't have the profile picture here yet. And that's because that will be in our profile model, not our user model. So we actually need to create an additional form. But since we'll be working with the profile model, we first need to import that. So here at the top, I'm going to say from.models import profile. And now we can create that profile form. So I'm going to call this class profile update form, and I'm going to inherit from that forms.model form. And now we don't want to add any additional fields here, so we can just jump straight into that class meta. And within that class meta, we can say that the model that we want to work with is profile. And the fields that we want to work with, this is still going to be a list, but it's only going to be a list of one value, and it's going to be image. Okay, so now we have two forms here, a user update form and a profile update form. And the user form will allow us to update our username and email, and the profile form will allow us to update our image. But whenever we actually put this on the template, it's going to look like just one form. Okay, so with those forms created, let's open up our views so that we can add these forms to our profile view. So I'm going to open up our user app views here. Now, first, let's add the forms that we just created. So let's import these. So we'll import these from the forms module, and we're already importing this user register form. So now we can just add on the user update form and the profile update form. And now down here within our profile, let's create instances of these. So for our user update form, I'll just call this u_form and set that to a user update form. And let me fix the spacing there. And we just want to instantiate that as empty for now. Now for our profile update form, I'll just call this p_form and set that equal to a profile update form. And now let's pass this in to our template. So to do this, if you remember, we can create a context, which is a dictionary, and the keys are going to be the variables that we're going to access within our template. So we can just pass in a uform variable here that is equal to our uform, which is our user update form. And I'll do the same for our profile update form. So p_form is equal to our p_form. And now let's pass that context into our template so that we can access those forms. Okay, so now let's open our profile template and print out these forms. Now, again, we've done this once when we created our register page, but it's probably good to go through this again. But as a starting point, let me go ahead and copy the form section of that register route so that you don't have to watch me type all of this again. So I'm going to open up the register route. So within our users templates, I'm going to open up register.html. And I'm just going to grab this form section here. So from the opening form tag to the closing form tag, I will copy that. And now within our profile template, so profile.html, I have a comment here that says this is where I want to drop my form. So I'm just going to drop the form right there and then fix the indentations there and save that. And remember from that video that we are using these Crispy Forms applications to print these forms out. So make sure that you're loading those at the top of the template. So if I go to the top of the template, we can see that I have this load Crispy Forms tags here. Now, if you don't have that, if it's not there for any reason, then go ahead and add that in so those Crispy Forms will work. Okay, so now let's go down here and look at our form. Okay, so this is the form that we created in the register page. Now within our profile template, we're actually going to have two forms with different fields, but we're going to put the fields for both of these forms into a single HTML form so that the user sees it as one. So let's see what this looks like. So I'm going to change this form to contain both of our user form and our profile form fields. So I'm just going to copy this section here and just put it in twice. And this first one here will be our U underscore form for our user form. And the P underscore form will be the fields for our profile form. And now I'll also change a couple of other things with this form to make it specific to our profile page. So for example, our legend here says join today because that was our register template. But now we want this to say, something like profile info. And down here with the submit button, it says sign up. But now we're going to be updating our profile. So let's change this to say update and save that. Okay, and one really important thing that I forget to do sometimes that always throws me off is to add a special encoding type to our form. Now we have to do this in order for our form to pass our image data for our profile picture properly. So at the top of our form, within the opening form tag here, we need to add an attribute of enc type. So that's ENC type. And we have to set that equal to multi-part / form dash data and save that. So be sure not to forget that. If you leave that out, then it can look like your form is working, but it won't actually be saving the image in the background, and that can be something that is kind of hard to debug. Okay, so with those changes made, let's see what this looks like in our browser to make sure that this is working so far. So I'm going to save all of those files and open up our terminal here, and it looks like we have an issue with one of our forms. Now it's saying that we don't have a fields attribute for one of our model forms. Now I don't think that is true. Okay, so I misspelled fields here. This needs to be fields and not field. So let's save that, open up this, and now let's restart our server. I think it might have trouble restarting there. So now it looks like it is starting up without any errors, so that's good. And now let's go to our browser and reload our profile page. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. Now, right off the bat, I notice one thing important, and that's that the fields aren't filled in with the current user information. So if you're updating your username or email, then you're going to want to have your current information filled in already so that you can see what it currently is. And also, we're not doing anything with this form information when it's submitted just yet. If we remember, when we submit forms, it's going to do a post request back to that same route with the data from the form. So let's address some of this in our views. So if we go back to our user app views file within our profile view, so first of all, let's populate these regular forms with the current information of the logged in user. And this is really easy to do. So remember, these are model forms that are expecting to be working on a specific model object. So we can populate the fields of the form just by passing in an instance of the object that it expects. So for the user update form, that will be an instance of a user, and the profile update form, that'll be an instance of a profile. So to do this, we can just say, when we instantiate these forms, I can say instance is equal to, and for the user update form, that's going to be request.user. So that'll be the current logged in user. And for the profile update form, I can say instance is equal to request.user.profile to get that user's profile. So making those small changes there will now populate those forms with the current user's information. So the user form, user update form, will have the username and email filled in, and the profile form will have the current image filled in. Okay, so just like up here with our register route, we're also going to want to put in a check to see whether this is a post route or not. And if it is, then we'll want to see if our forms are valid. And if the forms are valid, then we'll save that information. So let me copy this conditional up here and paste this into our profile view. So we'll say if the request.method is equal to a post, then we'll go ahead and create some forms. And if it is not, then let's also grab another thing of forms here for now. Okay, so within our post conditional, this is what will be run when we submit our form and possibly pass in new data. So we want to pass in the post data into our forms. So we want to keep the instances set like they are now because it has to know what user and profile that we want to update. So let's leave those there, but let's also pass in the post data. So right here before the instance is set, we'll say request.post to pass in the post data and still leave the instances set. So again, request.post and comma and keep the instance set. And finally, with the profile form, we're also going to be getting some additional data. And this is going to be file data coming in with the request. And that will be whatever image the user tries to upload. So right after the request.post data, we'll also add request, I spelled that wrong, request.files, and then put in a comma and keep the instance there. And if any of this ever spreads out too far, then we can always spread these up onto different lines. So let me do that and save that. Okay, so now that we have both of our forms populated with the data that's going to be submitted, then we can check if they're both valid. Now, if they're not both valid, then we're not going to save any of the data. And again, we're basically doing something very similar to what we did in our user registration form, but now we just have two forms. But the process is almost identical. So we can see up here we said if form is valid, but down here, we are going to say, and we're still within this if request equals post conditional. So this time we're going to say if uform dot is valid and pform dot is valid. So if they're both valid, then we're going to save the data. But if one of them isn't, then we're not going to save anything. So now within this conditional, we can simply say uform dot save and pform.save. So that'll save the user update form and the profile update form. Okay, and that should be everything that we need. So once our form information is updated, then let's give some feedback to our user, letting them know that they've updated their profile. And then we'll also redirect them back to the profile page. So again, this is very similar to our register route. So I'm going to copy from here because we already have a success message and a redirect up here. So I'm going to copy those. And within this is valid conditional, I'll paste those in. And for the success message, I will just say your account has been updated. And then we want to redirect them back to the profile page and save that. And you want to do a redirect here instead of letting it fall down here to our render template function call. And the reason is because of something called the post get redirect pattern. Now you might not know what that is, but most of you have probably seen it before. So if you've ever reloaded your browser after submitting a form and then a weird message comes up that says, are you sure that you want to reload because the data will be resubmitted or something like that? That is because your browser is basically telling you that you're about to run another post request when you reload your page. So us redirecting here causes the browser to send a GET request, and then we don't get that weird message if we try to reload. Okay, so with all of these coding changes saved, now let's try this out in our browser and see if we get the functionality that we're hoping for. So let's see if our dev server is still running, and it says it is. So let's reload our profile page, and we can see that it filled in our current username and email, so that's good, and our current profile picture. So now let's change some information around. So I'll say CoriumS2, CoriumSchafer2@gmail.com. Oops, let me put that in there. And also I will update my profile picture. So I'll grab this picture here and update. Okay, so we can see that it looks like that worked. So it fills in our new username and email here at the top where it's printing those out. And also it looks like it changed our profile picture. Now you'll probably want to go into the admin section and make sure all of this looks good to you there also. I remember one time I forgot to properly set the instance for one of these forms, and instead of actually updating existing objects, it was creating a lot of new objects in the background. So just to make 100% sure, let's go ahead and open the admin site as well and make sure that there's no new users or anything like that. So let me make this larger so you all can see. If I go into users, then we don't have a CoriumS user. We only have this CoriumS2, and the email address is updated, and this is still the admin user. So it did update that user. So that is good. Now let me also check the profiles here. So if I go into profiles, we no longer have a CoriumS profile, but we have a CoriumS2 profile here. So if I click on that, then we can see that, let's see if this new image is the one that we uploaded. And we can see that it is. Okay, now there is one more thing that I want to do here before we end this video. So I purposely wanted to update my profile picture to this large photo to show you something else that we can do. So I want to show you how you can automatically resize images when you upload them. So right now we're just accepting any image that the user uploads, but the largest image on our site right now in the CSS is set to like 125 pixels or something like that. So there's no use in having a huge 4,000 pixel image that just gets scaled down to 125 pixels. It takes up a lot of space on the file system, and it'll also cause your website to run slow because it has to send that large image to the browser every time. So for example, we can see that this image is really large, and it's actually larger than what I think it's showing up here in the browser because it's scaled down a little bit just so it can fit. So to resize images when we upload them, we're going to use a package called Pillow. And if you remember, we actually already installed Pillow when we first used the image field in our profile model because it needs that for the back end. So in order to resize this image, we're going to override the save method of our profile model. So let's open up that model. So within our project, let's go to our users app and open up our models. And here we have our profile model. And within our model, we're going to override the save method. And we can do this simply by saying def save and pass in self as the first parameter there. So this save method is the method that gets run after our model is saved. It's a method that already exists in our parent class, but we're creating our own so that we can add some functionality. So first things first, I'm actually going to run the save method of our parent class, and we can do this with super. So if we want to run the save method of our parent class, we can say super and then .save. So that parent class's save method would have been run when we saved an instance of this profile anyways. So if we uploaded a large image, then that should have saved it. But now we're going to grab the image that it saved and resize it. So to do this, we're going to need to import that Pillow library. So within our imports, we will come up here and say from PIL, and we specifically want to import image from that library. So now come back down here in our save method. And now let's open the image for the instance that we're saving. Now, if any of this class stuff is confusing to you, then I do have a series on working with classes in Python that you might be interested in. And in that series, I go over classes and instances and what the self variable is and everything like that. So definitely check that out if you want to know more details about the things that we're just briefly discussing here. Okay, so to open the image for this profile instance, then we can simply say, I'm going to create a variable here called img, set this equal to image, which we imported from the pillow library, image.open, and we want to open the self.image.path. So this will open the image of the current instance. And now we're going to resize that. So we want to specify what size that we want our image to be. So like I said, the max size that we display on the front end of our website is 125 pixels or around there. So let's resize it somewhere closer to that. So I think I'll choose around 300 pixels since that's still a small image, but it still gives us some flexibility to display larger images in the future if we'd like. And if images are larger than this, then they'll be sized down. So first, let's check if this current image is more than 300 pixels. So we can say if img.height is greater than 300, or if the img.width is greater than 300. So if either the height or the width is greater than 300, then we want to resize this. So now I'll say output size is equal to, and this is going to be a tuple of our max sizes here. And now to resize this and save it, I can say img.thumbnail and then pass in the output size. So that will resize that image. And now to save it, we can just save it back to the same path in order to overwrite that large image. So I'll say self.image.path. Okay, so with that in place, then that resized 300 pixel image should be saved to the file path and overwrite the larger image. Now, I should say that I found a lot of different ways to resize images like this when I looked online. Some of them were a lot more complicated than what I wanted to show you here, but there are probably some trade-offs also. But really, I just wanted to show you an example of what it's like to override the save method of a model, and I think that this is a good example. But if you are working on a larger project where efficiency is really important, then there are some additional ways in which you can do something like this also. And there are also some third-party packages out there that you can use that will do resizes and stuff like that for you. So if anyone is interested in doing this differently, then just leave a comment below and I'll make some suggestions. But what we have here should be good for our application that we have so far. So now let's test this out. So let's open back up our browser. So first test our dev server, and that's still running. Now let's open back up our browser and re-upload a large image. So I will resize this, go back to our profile page, and now let's re-upload this large image. So I'll upload this, and now let's see if this is a large image. So I'll open image in new tab. And now we can see that the large image that we had before, which was this one over here, it has now been resized to this 300 pixel image here, which will save a ton of space on our file system and also speed up our website. Now, there's a lot more that you can do with this. You could write some additional code that deletes old images when a user successfully changes their profile picture, but I'm just going to leave those there for now since they're not taking up that much space. So now let's close down these two tabs here. And also while I'm at it, I'm also going to change my username and email back to what they were before. So update that, and now we have the original username and email. Okay, so there is one more thing that I'd like to do in this video, and it's going to be really quick. Now that we have the ability to add custom user images to our site, now let's spice up the homepage a bit and display the image of the author beside each post. So this information will be in our blog's home.html template because that is where we're listing all of the blog posts. So let's open up that template. So that is within our blog app and templates, and then home.html. Okay, and to display the user's image, I'm going to put in an image tag here with some CSS classes that we added earlier in the series. So right below the article tag, and right above this div with the class of media body, I'm going to put in an image. And the source of the image we can set to an attribute here, and this is going to be the post.author.profile.image.url. So I know that's a long one there, but the current post, the author of the current post, the profile of that author, the image of that profile, and the URL of that image. So a lot to chain on there. So that'll be the source of the image, but I also want to add a class here. So we'll put in a class, and we will have this be a rounded circle, which is a bootstrap class. And then one of my own custom classes here, I'm going to put this as article-image and save this. So now with that in place, let's save everything and open this up in our browser and see if these changes took effect. So open up our home page and reload this. And now we can see that the author's image is popping up beside their post. And I think that's a nice way to kind of spice up the homepage there. Okay, so I think that is going to do it for this video. We now have a way for a user to update their profile information, and they can also update their profile pictures. Now in the next video, we'll create a page where different users can create posts that will then get added to the homepage here, but we'll also add a way for them to update and delete the post as well. But if anyone has any questions about what we covered in this video, then feel free to ask in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to answer those. And if you enjoy these tutorials and would like to support them, then there are several ways you can do that. The easiest way is to simply like the video and give it a thumbs up. And also, it's a huge help to share these videos with anyone who you think would find them useful. And if you have the means, you can contribute through Patreon, and there's a link to that page in the description section below. Be sure to subscribe for future videos, and thank you all for watching.